Reginald here. Today I'm going to talk to you in two parts about a couple different subjects. Number one, I would like to discuss an upcoming change that has been proposed by Fat Shark to Havoc's rank up and rank down system. After that, I think I'll just talk about my feelings about Havoc in general as a game mode, so stick around for that if you want to know. Alright, so straight to the meat of the issue then. The main change that is going on with Havoc that I have an issue with in the rank up and rank down system is the way they are changing how you lose tries for Havoc games. It's honestly a very simple system right now. If you are the person who hosts, you go up if you win and you go down, or at least lose a try if you lose. The other players get nothing. I don't think that's a great system, so what's been proposed to be changed is that all players go up if the players clear the mission that they've queued as a group, and all players will go down a try and possibly a rank if they lose. What this effectively means is that a party of 4 people who are playing at rank 40, Havoc rank 40, would normally have 12 tries, and that 12 tries is being reduced to 3 tries. This is a huge mistake. I really don't like this change, and I'm just going to be super upfront about it. I think this will basically kill Darktide for me if this change goes live. I'll probably make some videos about Ogren, and then I'll go do something else, because I don't know how I'm supposed to stay engaged when the game actively is preventing me from playing the game mode that I'm most interested in playing. I am not interested in playing Havoc 35, and I am not interested in playing Havoc 35 with optimized, hyper great, gold toughness spam gear. That's not how I play the game. It's not what's fun for me. If that's what's being forced on me, then I'm going to leave. Now, I'm never one for just spewing vitriol. I would like to provide some constructive ideas. Here is a vision for what I would like to see Havoc be like. This is a graph. The basic gist of this graph, if you're not looking at the screen, is it has sort of gradiated plateaus. So from level like 0 to 10 of Havoc, you're going to get sort of a steady increase in difficulty until you hit level 10. Then there's going to be a spike, and then you're going to be from 11 to 20, and there's going to be a gradation of increasing difficulty until you get to 20. Then there'll be a spike. And then at 21 to 30, there's going to be sort of increasing difficulty until you hit 30, and then there'll be a spike in difficulty going from 31 to 39, and that difficulty chain will be sort of the maximal difficulty for normal Havoc, quote unquote. And then what I'd like to do is I'd like to see another spike in difficulty when you get up to level 40. My dream for Havoc 40 is that the win rate is incredibly low, and it's basically insane to play, and people who can actually beat it by any means at all deserve plenty of props. Right now, Havoc 40 is easy enough that a large number of players are able to cheese it, and people like me are able to get 3 wins in a row using completely off-meta gear with completely terrible loadouts. I mean, you name it, we've tried it, and we've gotten wins in a row and like whatever. I'm not saying it's super easy, but I am saying we can do it consistently if we want to and aren't screwing around. So I'd like it to be a lot harder than that. The caveat here is that once we hit Havoc 40, I don't want there to be any deranking. None at all. I want Havoc 40. When you beat Havoc 39, you rank up to Havoc 40. That would be my dream. And then from there, you are locked at Havoc 40. You can play Havoc 40 as much as you want, or you can manually derank to any rank you want. This design is centered on the systems that are currently in place and will prevent any additional dev time, for the most part, required to make these changes, right? You can just say Havoc 40 is locked, you're locked in at Havoc 40, you're done, right? There'll be a little tweaking in the back end, I'm sure, but I don't know how this works. I'm just talking about what makes sense within the domain of the systems that already exist, right? The derank mechanic is already there. And then as long as no other changes are made with the derank mechanic, you can go derank down to 35 and you'll start ranking up as you win all the way back up to 39, right? So if you want to play in the 35 to 39 range or whatever that is for difficulty for you, you can do that. If you don't want to play in 40, that should be no problem. But if I want to bang my head against the nearly impossible 40 for the rest of my life, I should be able to do that without deranking. So that's my idealized vision of Havoc 40. So let me just reiterate my point as concisely as possible. Preceding this summary was a vision for how I would like Havoc 40 to play, including locking at 40 to allow infinite retries on a really difficult Havoc 40 mission. If this change that is proposed to ranking up and ranking down is published as is with only 3 tries per player party on a Havoc 40, I'm just going to quit the game. There's nothing for me to do. And I'm going to explain why in the next section, which will be a bit less edited than this section. I think I'm going to kind of shoot from the hip here a little bit, speak from the heart and talk. So if that's not your thing, I'm done. If that's your thing and you wanted to sort of hear me talk about and pontificate about Havoc and what I like and don't like about it, cool. I'm not going to trim this down nearly as much as I normally do. It's going to be less concise. So put on some headphones, do some dishes or whatever and just listen to me ramble. I like Havoc 40. I like Havoc 40 a lot. I like Havoc, like high Havoc 38 plus or whatever. I think it's really fun. There are problems with the system as it is released. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the party finder only mechanic. A quick play mechanic might be nice to tack onto it, but like, I get it. It's never been a big impediment to me enjoying the game, and I'm kind of the target market, right? So whatever. I can play with the people that I play with who are all really good at the game, and we can have a lot of fun. I do not love all of the modifiers that are chosen all the time, and I'm not the hugest fan of enemies becoming bullet sponges. You can only do so much to increase difficulty without increasing the health pools of the enemies, but there is an extent to which I don't like all the changing breakpoints, minimizing the amount of weapon diversity you're really allowed to play with without kind of just picking garbage and just trying to go for it as a challenge run, which I do plenty of that. Now, here's the thing about Havoc. A lot of people don't like Havoc, and just like on a base level, like they don't find the game very engaging, and like they want to be able to choose their maps, they want to be able to choose their modifiers, all that kind of stuff. I totally understand that, but I've never engaged with the game that way personally. Like, I don't care what map it is unless the map doesn't have good spawn rates and is not hard enough. I don't really care what the modifiers are as long as they're not the ones that I don't like, which is specifically, I don't like the Blight Spreads one, which turns the floor into lava, because it's unengaging, and I don't really like the Pox Gas one either for the same reason. Things that restrict my mobility and movement and prevent me from engaging with a progression on the map, and I just have to sort of stand around, feel really negative to me. So I'm not a huge fan of those mechanics, but for the most part, I'm fine with what they've done with Havoc. It's fine, and I'm just going to queue it up and I'm going to play, and as soon as I'm in the game, enjoying the game, what map I'm on, what enemy modifiers there are, really just stop mattering, and I'm just trying to win and play, and I'm engaged. So that's how I've always engaged with the game, even back in Oryx, and so those complaints, never a big deal for me. Whatever. I know I'm in the minority on that, and what am I supposed to say? I like what I like, okay? I will say, however, that Havoc was extremely necessary to retain me. I am definitely a very highly skilled player in this game. This isn't me, like, bragging. I'm talking about it from an objective perspective. I have done a ton of very difficult challenge runs in this game. I am still not as good as some players. There are players who are better than me, objectively speaking, and I still have things I'm working on to get better at the game. But just as a point of comparison, I am now in the top 5% of the player base, which contains around like 300,000 concurrent active players, which is a lot larger than this game, which is Marvel Rivals. I am in a competitive game that's PvP, and I am playing in a very high tier in that game. Not like World's Best or anything, but definitely very high tier. Okay? So I'm at least that good. And I'm bringing that to Darktide, and I think I'm better at Darktide than I am at Marvel Rivals. So I think it's fair to say, especially since I'm playing Marvel Rivals with like Mr. Fantastic, actually, maybe that makes it more impressive that I am in the top 5% on Mr. Fantastic. That's actually perhaps, considering he's considered generally bad. He's like the old chain axe of weaponry. He's like almost good, but not really. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, and the point I'm trying to make here is I have a second point of comparison to say, hey, look, I'm playing Darktide in like the top 1% or better, maybe the top like marginal percentage of like 0.01% or whatever. And I am not the only player that's playing at that level. There's a lot of names that I know of people who play at this level and who engage in the game that the way that I engage in the game, right? Mostly I'm trying to have fun and engaging challenges and interactions with the game, okay? I'm not trying to be the best in the world and always win and maximize my win rate. I'm trying to have like engaging and entertaining challenges to explore the dynamics and the puzzles of the game. And I'm trying to play with different toys that I like and just keep it fresh and fun. So that's how I engage with the game. But I'm still in that really high category of player who's playing at a really high level. And so for me, Havoc is the only way I can actually be engaged in the game. Auric Maelstrom is still a hard difficulty for most players. I know everybody sort of has this habit of talking about Auric Maelstrom like it's easy. That's because a lot of us have soloed Auric Maelstrom at this point. I have. It's not like it's easy. I don't think it's easy, but if I play well and I'm focused and I'm playing to a nearly perfect degree and I don't make any mistakes around disablers, then I will clear it. So when I go back to an Auric Maelstrom with a squad of people who are all capable of doing that, even if they're not paying attention right now, like, that game is a sleeper for us at that point. Auric Maelstrom is just like, I'm tired, I'm bored. Like, I'm literally playing this game with my eyes almost closed. I can literally clear an Auric Maelstrom in duos, in solos. So, like, when I am screwing around, like, it might be the case that I'll die because I didn't pay attention to a disabler enough because I turned my brain off, right? And that risk is always there, even in Malice. But if I die, then the other 3 players who are just as good as me could easily get me. There's really no risk, right? And if 3 other players are down, one of those players can solo an Auric Maelstrom, so they'll probably just get all 3 of us and win the game, right? It's like, it'll be cool to watch. Everybody agrees that it's impressive to solo an Auric Maelstrom, even to this day, even for Havoc players. But let's not pretend it can't be done at this point. Lots of people have done it, and so when you're playing with those people, it's like, okay, there's no risk here. I'm not being challenged, I'm just sort of going through the motions. So for me, Havoc is the challenge range of difficulty content. And I've done it a bunch of different ways, and I still find it hard even when I know I can breeze through it in 16 minutes if I play a certain way. And even if I know that if I take some meta loadout, I can make it a lot easier. Like, it's a hard enough difficulty that I'm engaged, that I feel like there's a real risk of losing. And I feel like I want to try to play hard with whatever loadout I've picked, right? I might pick a suboptimal loadout to make it fun for myself, but I know I'm going to be working for it to win, right? And this is true, I think, for a lot of the player base, right? Like, I play Havocs the way people are used to play Oryx. Like, they'll pick whatever loadout they want, they'll have fun, but they'll feel challenged and engaged. Well, that's how Havoc feels to me. It's actually not hard enough right now. Because I'm not, like, being tested hard enough, I want it to be sweatier. I know not everybody feels that way, I get it. Like, I really do. But I feel that way. This game mode is for me, right? It's not literally my game mode, but, like, there's a bunch of players that are like me that enjoy this mode because it is exactly what I'm describing. It's for the people who are in the top 1% of the game. Well, I am, and I'm one of the largest surviving YouTubers for this game as well. Just because I love it, I think it's fun, and it's really just that simple. That's how I roll. I might be repeating myself too much there. I did warn you this would be the more rambly section, so at least if you're entertained, then I'm doing a decent job. Any case, the summary of all that is, like, I play at a very high level, and this game is Havoc is for people at a high level, so I want it to be really hard, and I want it to be really engaging, and I want it to be challenging. I want the game mode to be fun and interesting. But, and key thing here, my main objective, as I mentioned earlier, would be that I get to play Havoc 40 over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, the way I would play Auric Maelstrom. I'm not interested in playing Havoc 35. I want to play Havoc 40. And I want Havoc 40 to be harder, and I want to die super hard in my games. That's where I'm going to derive the most entertainment, is banging my head against a really nearly impossible wall until I get the win. And that satisfaction of being in the micro percentage of people who've been able to even beat it, let alone beat it, with goofy gear, is kind of what I want, right? And I want to be able to just keep doing it. I want to invite people who aren't very good at it to do it too, and see if we can get them through it in a way that's fun and interesting and not totally broken, right? That would be my ideal. So yes, I like Havoc. Yes, I even love Havoc, but I do have that major problem. That's what the problem I'm describing earlier is. It's like, hey, this game was for me, and you're taking it away from me and making it pointless to have, right? Not a good idea. Okay, let's talk about some of the problems that Havoc has. I think the Party Finder tool is a bit insufficient. You really need to be able to see people's true level without a mod. Can we just make that a thing already? Like, it needs to be there. Another thing that would be really nice is being able to see people's, like, chosen loadouts without a mod. The Party Finder, if it's going to be a tool for selecting or not selecting players, needs to show you more than their class and whether or not they've hit, like, level 30 or whatever, right? I need to be able to see what their actual level is, what their actual level of experience is. I need to be able to filter on some criteria against people. I don't personally do that much filtering when I let people in, but I'm going to do a little. Like, I'm not going to let somebody into my lobby if they're a level 23 actual, and they have, no Havoc clearance level, whatever. Like, I'm going to be playing a Havoc 40, they're going to get folded, and I don't feel like running a trio. I want to run a quad, and that's why I'm here. So those things need to be fixed with the Party Finder. Okay, Party Finder. I would also like there to be some sort of quick play mechanic. I know that Havoc 40 is really, really hard, but if people want to quick play into, like, lower Havocs, they should be able to. They should be able to engage with it from the normal mission board without having to go through this much rigmarole, or at least from the Havoc mission board. Like, make it easy, right? There's too many blocks and barriers to getting into Havoc. It's fine for me in pre-mades, and it's fine for, like, ego plays, but it's not great if you want to just, like, go get into it. It's a little too punishing for that in some areas, and I think the proposal I had at the beginning would probably fix some of that. What else? I think it's really necessary to get rid of the floor's lava mechanics. Having 5 gas men spawn and chuck grenades that prevent you from moving is terrible. It encourages the wrong kind of gameplay. I think if we're going to do the pox gas on the floor thing, we need to stop dividing the map into, like, easy squares that you're just not allowed to progress through. Like, it needs to be It needs to wall off the edges of the map, not the center of the map, to prevent you from progressing, or the whole map to prevent you from progressing. Like, it needs to be segmented in such a way that you're being punished for you're being pressed in on, not necessarily being prevented from making progress, right? Because it prevents progress right now. You just stand around and wait, and then sometimes you have to push through it, and whatever. It's not fun. I think the blight spreads modifier, unfortunately, causing so much corruption just by stepping in it and being kind of hard to hear and not that engaging. It's just not an engaging mechanic. There's a one-stop talent solution that solves the entire mechanic. So you just take that, and then you're like, why is Beacon of Purity so useless otherwise and so good here? It's not a good mechanic, right? It doesn't satisfy any interesting gameplay consequences. It could be interesting if it did other things, like maybe it gave random buffs to enemies or something instead of making the floor lava. But when the floor is lava, then I can't move and I'm not having fun. Darktide is a hybrid combat game that involves movement as a core element of its design paradigm. Being able to move is fun. That's why fast weapons are more fun than slow weapons to some degree, because fast weapons give you a lot of zippiness, and zippiness is fun. Okay? It just is. What else? A couple other things, I suppose, that come to mind are, overall, I understand that this game is more fun for a lot of people when they have more flexibility. I totally get that, and Havoc does kind of limit the player a little bit. I think there's some of that that's going to kind of be, either it's going to take a long time to dial in, or it's just going to be necessary, right? There's only so much you can do to make everything good. However, I've also been proven wrong about some stuff, like, hey, the tac axe is actually pretty A tier, in my opinion, now that we've gotten those breakpoints. And we can thank a few players like Khan and Agatha and Little Mond for figuring that out and finding out what works, right? So there's more options than people are giving it credit for, much like in the early days of Auric. A lot of stuff is viable in Havoc that wasn't viable before, but it's also much harder difficulty. So just pubbing, if you're just pubbing, you're going to have a hard time with some gear. That's just the reality, okay? It's going to be tough. It is what it is. It's fine. It's going to be harder than doing the absolute metagear. I will say that the absolute metagear needs to be dialed down. There's a few weapons like the dueling sword that's just crazy. The knife probably needs some tweaks since it's pretty much right behind the dueling sword for goodness. And the only reason it's not is because the dueling sword is the dueling sword. Another option that we need to look at is a way to reduce the impact and effectiveness of over toughness. There's a lot of people who want to take an absolute laser torch to it, but I still am very fun focused with Darktide. A lot of people are very maybe balance or numbers focused or challenge focused, but despite the fact that I am a Giga Sweatlord, as some people will call me and criticize me for, I actually am very fun oriented with this game. I want the weapons to be fun and thematic and engaging for the player base in general. So yellow toughness mechanics are actually really cool, and they need to be impactful, otherwise no one's going to want to do them. Like Chorus needs to give you a lot of value, or there's no reason to take it because you just stand there doing nothing for a long time, right? Realistically speaking, you're kind of just doing an animation and shoving some enemies around. It's not doing a lot. You're not really engaged at a deep mechanical level. So if you're going to have that, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, it's a power fantasy that you can fulfill. I think it's actually pretty fun and entertaining and very thematic. Then it needs to have some impact. But also, we need to dial back how spammable they are at a minimum. I think cooldown reduction, the likes of which we've been starting to see flow out into some talent trees, is probably the right play. Just reducing the amount of uptime you have on these yellow toughness mechanics would make using them more hit or miss, right? And what I mean by hit or miss is okay, let's say there's a bunch of crushers in a patrol and they come after you. Do you use your yellow toughness now because you're not going to have it in a few minutes when, say, the Plague Ogre spawns and comes in with the second monstrosity spawn? You might need it then more than you need it for this crusher patrol, right? So having that trade-off be more present in your mind and making you a little bit more resistant to just spamming all the time to constantly have uptime, it would be a big impact on the overall utility of these abilities. At the very minimum, you would need more of them on more people in order to get that same kind of coverage. And one thing that's definitely true is these abilities do sacrifice a lot of safety, mobility. They sacrifice a lot of damage output that can be used to filter out all of the stuff that's threatening you. So it can be the case. I mean, Voice of the Command, let's not talk about Voice of Command. Voice of Command is its own monster. But at least Chorus is definitely not absolutely perfect. It has local competition with FOTF for utility and value. It's just if you could spam it, then it doesn't really, right? At this level of difficulty where you're able to turn off entire groups of enemies, it's kind of the smite of the zealot, right? If we pull that down a little bit in its frequency, then I think we can still keep the mechanic really strong without having to completely gut it, and then you can have the mechanic be balanced against other mechanics. Now, voice of command, that's a whole other bag of worms. Voice of command is so strong, and his other talents on veteran right now are kind of in a weird spot. Executioner's stance still needs something, probably just a toughness pump, to be perfectly honest. And I think that we're missing out on something for like a toughness pump on button press specifically. And I think likewise, the infiltrate is too overstuffed with random subnodes and probably could be combined to allow more points in the tree to be picked up without sacrificing ability value. I also think that ability probably needs a little bit of looking at, so I'm not sure what to do with that. But these are, I mean, you can beat Havoc with this. With it, we ran a game where we had a infiltrate shotgun zealot or infiltrate shotgun vet, and we won, and he was like top damage or something like that. So it's like, it can be done. It's not a matter of whether it can be done. It's a matter of whether or not it's fun to play and good, right? And the barrier for entry isn't literally being like one of the best players in the entire game, and in Vermintide, right? Like Combine is insane. So he ran it and he did really well, but like, guy's nuts. Not everybody's nuts. You can't just base it on the top 1% on whether or not something, top 0.1% on whether or not something's good or bad, right? You can't balance for that all the time. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to the players who are in the lower lobbies, right? I think I'll make a video about that at some point, by the way, in regards to balancing things for Marvel Rivals. I want to talk about this concept in AI, which is there's something called a local minima, which is if you've reached a certain plateau in capacity, you can have a meta or an optimization for that plateau without being able to descend to the next more optimized plateau. You might have an objective you're trying to achieve, but certain criteria aren't met, so that objective's more optimal choice is not visible or optimal, actually, and you can only do the slightly less technically optimal thing, but you can't get down any more optimization. I'm explaining it poorly, but in any case, a middle tier player is going to think different things are better than a higher tier player because the things they can do are different. And that's true in this game too. And so I consider that a lot when I'm talking about balance changes. I consider the different levels of players who are playing this game. That was a bit of a tangent. Well, you'll just have to tolerate it. I think there's one other thing that people really don't like with Havoc, and I super understand, which is I can't choose my modifiers, I can't choose my maps. This does not bother me, but I understand it bothers some people. I don't know if there's ever going to be a resolution to this because we've all been asking for a long time, and my suspicion is that it's server related, right? Like you imagine they're standing up a bunch of servers. They have to partition space for those on those servers for running things. They're probably being charged some sort of server space fee. So a certain maximum or minimum number of server consumptions have to be understood to be spun up to handle the player base. If the player base isn't very big, then you can't do certain things. Like it's all those kinds of problems is my guess for what's going on. Like I'm not a server architect. I never have been. But I know a little about these subjects, and that's the kind of stuff I hear about in the gaming world, about setting up servers and handling things. I've talked to game devs, right? I'm not just like some guy. I've talked to game devs. They talk about this stuff. I know game devs personally, and they will talk about things like this. And while I don't fully understand the nuts and bolts of every single system, I think I can speak reasonably well to the fact that it's not so easy to if you're running the servers yourself, or it's all server-side connections, like those servers cost money. You can only do so much. That could be the reason, right? And that's my guess. No one has ever confirmed this to me from Fat Shrek. I've literally never been told or talked to about this subject, so don't go wildly speculating just because I'm a playtester. Funny story, being a playtester doesn't make you privy to every piece of information on the internal operations of a business. Gee whiz. But that's safe enough to say, because obviously I'm just saying I don't know something, and I'm not trying to put words in Fat Shark's mouth is all I'm really saying, but I'm just guessing, right? That would be my guess. The same way I used to guess about this stuff with you guys in the past. I've said this before on the forums or whatever an age ago. If it could be fixed, that's cool, but if it can't be fixed, it's no bother to me, because all I want is a selection of maps. And I guess let me get to the point here. Map selection isn't that important to me, because what matters is I want like the shitty maps to stop being shitty because they're shitty because they're not fun to play after a point. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like Archive of Sycorax isn't fun not because it's not a neat map. It looks really cool and it's got good topography and it's fun to play like the first few times. It's that the enemies turn off after a point. So why am I here? You know, you get to some sections of the map that there's just no conflict anymore. It's boring. Especially the finale. Like, my God, what a snooze most of the time, right? So that's the problem. There's a lot of maps like that where the game just stops working. So someone's got to fix that so that I can play on all the maps. I don't need that. The other thing I will say about Havoc, speaking of map rotation, is I don't know what's going on with this map rotation thing. Why do we not have every map in the rotation? We have it already for work. Like, what could we like, I know I talked about server stuff, but like, bro, can I just have all the maps? Like, why do we got to rotate maps in and out? Like, we already have that in the work board. Why can't we have it here? I just want, like, put them into the queue. Like, let's say there's 100 players who are playing at Havoc 40, and you need to run 100 server. You need to run you need to run that divided by 4 or whatever servers in order to make sure they all have space. Just hypothetically speaking, like I literally don't know. I'm just like guessing, right? There's only like 15 maps, so you could have one server for each map if that's how it works. And I don't know how it works, but if that's how it works, you'd have one server for each map, right? And then you could spool up another server, and you could farm that out to the first, you know, however many players that is, and like you're good. Like if after that point you have to have capacity for all the players, so like I don't see the problem. Maybe I don't understand some technical thing. I mean, I sound like a dumbass to myself right now, but it seems to me there's no reason that every map couldn't be in the rotation with different modifiers. Also, where's monstrous modifier? Sorry, last thought. Where's my monstrous specialists? I need those. I can't believe I'm in Havoc and there's no monster specialist. I need monster specialists. I need the game to be harder. I need it to be worse. We should probably fix the Beast of Nurgle. He's really horrible. And Bulwarks. We should do something about Bulwarks. Can we get like can we just replace Bulwarks with like a Ogre and Berserker or something? You know what I'm saying? Like, he's just like an Ogre and Berserker, and there's like, they come in packs of 2 or 3. No more. And they're really scary, and that'd be cool. Make Crushers hard to kill again. That's it. That's all I got, boys. And it is like 99.9% boys and like the one girl who watches my channel. So that's how it is. Okay. It's been a pleasure, everyone. I hope you didn't mind me rambling too much and thinking my thoughts about Havoc. I've been playing a lot of Havoc. I really like Havoc. I want to play Havoc more with people. I want on my streams, I do play Havoc with people a lot, quite frequently, just random people. We lose most of those games. I don't care. I really have a fun time. When we win, it's awesome. It's really exciting. People get clutches. We celebrate the clutches. It's cool. We're having a good time. So if you want to stop by my stream sometime and play, I usually stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 p.m. US Central to 5 p.m. Other than that, I guess I'll just say thanks so much for visiting. Have a wonderful day. Warm regards.
Reginald.
I would like to take a moment to express my genuine and significant gratitude to Bonehead for becoming my first Oath Taker level member. Your support really does mean a lot to me and has made it so much easier for me to continue to justify the amount of effort I pour into this channel. I'd also like to thank Miles Williams Lewis, Joseph Davison, Shackleford, and McSpan for supporting my channel through my Adept level membership. Your atypical support really means a lot to me, and I appreciate it. I'd also like to extend a thank you to the rest of my members. Support helps the channel a lot. If you would like to become a member of this channel, there is a link in the description below and a join button next to the subscribe button. Thank you all so much for visiting. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.